Hello, everyone, and welcome to. We still have to figure out a new name for this, but it's Western Conference Wednesday now on Tuesdays. But welcome to Locked On NHL. I'm your host, Jess Belmosto, and today we are going to talk about mid teams, 3 games into the season, and let's jump right into it.
You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Locked On NHL. I'm your host, Jess Belmosto of Locked On Flames, alongside my partner in crime, Brett Holden of Locked On Oilers. And thank you so much for tuning in to Locked On NHL. Make sure that you're tuned in and subscribed to Locked On NHL wherever you get your podcasts, and of course on YouTube. You can't go wrong there, and you get to interact with us in the comments. And today, we're going to be talking about the Vancouver Canucks and Minnesota Wild's turbulent start to the season, considering how high the expectations were 2 weeks ago. So, Brett, let's start off with Vancouver.
Vancouver, they were the team that a lot of people had as their dark horse this year, and not starting off that way.
Yeah, I think that maybe they're still in the preseason. Maybe it hasn't clicked with them yet that, the 82 game season did start. And you and I were talking before the game, or before the show rather, and you mentioned that the Canucks still aren't fully healthy.
Yeah, the Canucks aren't fully healthy yet. Tyler Myers is still out of the lineup for them on their backside, or their back end, excuse me. Ilya Mikheyev, their big marquee signing of the offseason, hasn't played a game yet. It seemed like he could have been out for the season. It seemed like they weren't really sure their timeline. He could be back this week, it sounds like. But they're still calling player-only meetings already.
It's still October. It is still October.
Exactly. We have 3 games in. We have not even a full lineup. Yes, I mean, the big story for the Vancouver Canucks is the fact that they have blown multi-goal leads in all 3 of their games. Obviously, there's something going wrong. The interesting thing is after Connor Garland scored one of his goals against the Edmonton Oilers, he said, yes, we scored. Yes, we have the lead, but now is a matter of keeping that lead and staying focused. Well, in the first game of the season, they allowed 5 unanswered goals, and it was just the start of the slide that we've seen now.
Yeah, and I think that we tell people, especially I think for us, because our teams are stronger contenders, it's still early in the season, like, don't worry about it, like, it's okay. But truly, I don't think we need to worry about the Canucks right now. If this was, a January, February sort of thing, and, maybe they're doing player-only meetings once a month at that point, then yeah, it's past the point of worrying. But, we're barely a week into the season. The Canucks do have some, I don't want to say promise because that's overstating it, but I think that they do have potential to be, a middle of the road hockey team that the Western Conference, the Pacific Division usually is. And if that's where they land, I think that that's a good recovery. But again, it's not about how you start, it's how you finish. And I just, is this a Thatcher Demko thing, or is it their defense?
Yeah, see, I'm not sure how much you can blame Thatcher Demko. I mean, the thing is that they have been in the lead in all of these games. They have like you said, I don't think it is a massive deal. It is early, but obviously you are proving that you can A, score first, B, score early, and C, get into the game. But the big thing for them is trying to keep that lead. Can it be chalked down to the goaltender? Potentially, but you take a look at the effort on one of the goals from the Washington Capitals just last night, and you take a look at Quinn Hughes, and he gave no effort into it. No effort into it. And a lot of people have been hammering into him on social media today, just as how poorly he was giving in that effort. It seemed like he was going 30%. And guess what? It was his man who tapped in backdoor for, I believe it was the what eventually became the game winning goal.
You know, is this a situation where they're getting too comfortable with the lead? Because I know, I mean, in the Battle of Alberta, I know we said we weren't going to mention it for, you know, we don't want to rub any more salt in the wound.
Thank you.
But I think that the Flames did get a little bit comfortable in the middle frame there. So is this a situation where the Canucks got or have they're too comfortable with a lead? We haven't seen them break the habit yet, but you know, it. Do they just need? Like, I know we're all like, in Bruce we trust, but Brucey, come on, do
Yeah.
yourself some favors here.
Yeah. Well, the nice bright spot I would say for Vancouver has been Andre Kuzmenko has been fantastic for them so far. Just an everywhere type of player, a buzzsaw type player. I think he's been what, and I'm sure I'm gonna get absolutely yelled at for this take, but
Let's
I
hear
think
it.
he's kind of been what Nail Yakupov was supposed to be in that
Ooh,
first, yeah, just coming out of juniors, and just he's such a buzzsaw. He goes out there and he can score, he can produce, and he has a level head, which is not what Nail Yakupov had. I think Kuzmenko, along with Ilya Mikheyev, will get healthy here and will be playing in that lineup. Tyler Myers hopefully will be getting healthy. I think Travis Dermott is still out as well. They don't have Tucker Poolman ended up getting a knock in their game against, I believe it was Philadelphia too. I think he did play in the last game against Washington, but not exactly 100%. Right now, you're getting those nicks and those knocks, and now you're starting to go where the depth is really where
yeah.
the issue comes for the Vancouver Canucks.
Maybe if they didn't take on that OEL contract, they would be able to have some cap flexibility. But
Hmm.
who knows?
Hmm.
Um, I
Weird
don't
how
know.
that works. Weird how that works. Weird how big contracts don't always work out. And that's coming from somebody who covers the Oilers. But let's move on to another team who has been kind of underwhelming so far, especially after Jess and I,
Yeah.
gave them so much praise in the offseason. And now, well, they're off to an 0-3 start, and it's not looking too bright for them. A lot of goals against. We will talk about them in just a second, but first, I want to tell you about our partners over at Built. If you haven't tried a Built Bar Puffs yet, then you're depriving yourselves of one of life's greatest joys. And guess what? There's a new flavor. Ready?
Let's hear it.
Delicious, indulgent
Okay.
cookie dough.
Oh,
Oh yeah,
where's
covered.
the package built? Where is it? I need it at my door.
You've been waiting for those packages. That's smart. It's all covered as well in 100% real chocolate. That's right. Built has done it. again. Let me introduce you to your new favorite cookie dough chunk puffs, which have a light and chewy texture, real cookie dough chunks, and of course, as mentioned, they are covered in 100% real chocolate. All the joys of eating cookie dough without the hassle of actually making it yourself. Plus, it's healthy too. Cookie dough chunk puffs are only 160 calories, and as well, they have a whopping 15 grams of protein
So good.
in them. 15 grams. What's great about Built is that all of their bars are also made with collagen protein, which your body actually absorbs more efficiently and provides tons of health benefits. Eat something that tastes good and is actually good for you as well. Head to built.com and use promo code locked on 15, that is 1 5, to get 15% off your next order. That is using promo code locked on 15, 1 5, to get 15% off your next order at built.com.
The Wild, Brett. What
Ugh.
what are we gonna do about them?
I don't know. Hopefully, find someone who can prevent a goal.
Oh,
that
oh
guy, that guy may have been somebody who was sent off to Ottawa, but right now it's certainly not the guy who they signed to an extension
no.
in the offseason in Marc-Andre Fleury.
No. I was looking at his stats and he has like an 8.75 or 8.45 save percentage and like an 8 something goals against average.
8.
8. Like Alex Ovechkin 8.
8.37 goals against average for Marc-Andre Fleury. You're right on there. That is, I was going to say Mikko Koskinen numbers. I'm going to throw out here a name, and I don't know if you'll remember it, but these are Yutaka Fukafuji numbers. And that is not a made up name. Yutaka Fukafuji played for the LA Kings back in the mid 2000s, I believe, and not exactly a statistical dream. And that is what Marc-Andre Fleury, who is supposed to be a statistical dream, is providing.
Ugh.
What is going on? Why? This is supposed to be a defensive masterclass of a team. And in their 3 games so far, in their first game, they allowed 6 goals. Their second game, they allowed 7. And the third goal, again, they allowed 7.
How do you do that?
This is a team, as mentioned, that prides themselves on being a defensive minded team. I mean, we've talked about their defense
How many
before.
times, Brett, have we talked about their defense being phenomenal and one of the best in the league?
I mean, countless. Jonas Brodin, Matt Dumba, John Merrill, Jacob Middleton, Jared Spurgeon. They're getting Kalen Addison finally some time in the NHL. I haven't even mentioned Alex Goligoski and Andre Schuster, who are 2 NHL veterans as well and known for the defensive awareness that they have. And they're allowing over 6 goals per game.
That's nauseating.
Ah, yeah. I mean, it would be different, I guess, almost kind of. It seems like Edmonton Oiler hockey almost from the playoffs last year.
Yeah.
But 7-6 was their closest game so far this year against the Los Angeles Kings, a bit of a back and forth game. But then they're playing against good hockey teams. They're playing against teams that they are supposed to be playing later on in the season for very important spots, potentially in the playoffs, in Colorado and Los Angeles, and one of the best teams in the league in the New York Rangers. And they showed why they're the best team in the league. But they also showed that they are a step above the Minnesota Wild. But why? Where is it all going wrong for Minnesota?
Well, Marc-Andre Fleury is no Igor Shesterkin.
Yeah, or Jonathan Quick, but he's got to be better than Pavel Francouz.
Yeah. Yeah, I would think so. But I don't, and it's not like they're not scoring goals
No,
because they're putting up numbers, but where is that defense going? And if you know your goalie is struggling, don't you think you would try to protect the net a little bit more?
help them out, give them some sort
Yeah.
of help.
Yeah.
And you have that. You seemingly have that with a relatively good defense. Again, we mentioned it. We mentioned it to the nines, really, but Kalen Addison is currently sitting with 4 points in the season in 3 games. So, and he's not the biggest defensive guy on that team, right? So he's not A, he's playing himself into the lineup, but B, that means you are focusing more on the points than you are preventing the goal. But B, that also means that somebody who is more defensively minded, like an Andre Schuster, has to come out of the lineup. Like you have all these guys. Jacob Middleton's not going to come out of the lineup because he's
No.
also very strong around the net. At the same time, they're also Marco Rossi has gotten into 2 games this year, and they've been in the bottom 6 shifts.
And that
He's
doesn't seem like where he belongs.
no, he's supposed to be
Like
a
the
Calder.
guy.
Exactly, he's supposed to be a Calder Trophy candidate here, and he's just been anywhere but allowed the opportunity. They've lost 6-3 and 7-3 now twice. Well, in
Yeah,
the season. They need to find somebody who's gonna score goals. I mean, yeah, we mentioned that they have been scoring goals, but if you're gonna be allowing 7, 6 goals every game, Kirill Kaprizov can't score them all. Matt Boldy's been fantastic so far.
right.
Zuccarello, yes, him as well.
Why
Where
aren't we giving this golden prodigy the chance? Like, I feel like this is something that like a non-hockey person would be able to figure out, like what
yeah.
might be part of the solution.
Currently, right now, Jonas Brodin is sitting at a 9.58 goals against per 60 minutes. So that would mean if he was out for 60 minutes, he would be out for his team would allow basically 9 goals per game. And that's at 5-on-5. Jonas Brodin is supposed to be the shutdown guy for the Minnesota Wild, and he is out there producing the least of all of the defensemen when it comes to defensive stats here. Kalen Addison, we just talked about his offensive prowess. Well, he's fourth in goals against, fourth worst, I should say, in goals against per 60 minutes at 8.98. The best goals against per 60 minutes at 5-on-5 is from a guy who's played 1 game, and that's 0. And he played, doesn't have the amount of 5 minutes and 42 seconds on the ice. Then your next best is Jacob Middleton, who has a 1.42, but you're not going to play him on your top pairing and play him the most amount of minutes. So that's telling me that your best players right now aren't producing, aren't preventing the play or preventing pucks from going into your net. And it's those depth guys like a Jacob Middleton. Jared Spurgeon is surprisingly, I don't want to say surprisingly because he's a good defenseman, but he's in the top 10 here at 6. Marco Rossi, who's played in those 2 games, is at 7 here. So you got to take maybe look at those extra stats here, and these are all at 5-on-5 because
Mhm.
not everybody plays on the special teams. Maybe you need to start making adjustments to your lineup based on who's been out there and who hasn't been out there. Because obviously, these are indicative of people who have been out there and who haven't been out there.
Oh,
If that makes sense.
absolutely. And I just I don't know. I really don't know why they, I mean, okay, it has again only been 3 games. So you can't just say like, so I can't just say, well, I don't know why there haven't been any adjustments yet because it's only been 3 games. That's why. But I don't think that this is the recipe for success. Uh, you know, maybe down the road when they get their butt in gear and potentially, shake off this early season cobweb nonsense or whatever is going on. But right now, they need to get their act together and switch it up because this is not going to work
No.
at
Coming up for the Minnesota Wild, we'll talk about one of their games coming up in a little bit. But out of their next 5 opponents, they have the Boston Bruins, who is a very solid hockey team,
Mhm.
full-fledged hockey team. The Ottawa Senators, who have a lot of hype around them, whether they've lived up to it so far or not. They still have that's still an important game for them, a big game. And the Detroit Red Wings, who have come on with a hot start this year as well, a difficult team so far to play against. So if you're still not, you don't have your legs underneath you by then, maybe then you start going, and it seems like a little bit of a different story than Vancouver, maybe. Because Vancouver, you sit there and go, oh, okay, well, at least they're getting the hot starts. At least they're getting to the lead. They don't have their full team yet. And Ilya Mikheyev is a defensive forward, so he'll help with preventing goals. But here on the other side, Minnesota has everybody. They have all their shutdown defensemen and good defensive forwards and a good goaltender as well, one of the best in the last generation. And you've allowed 7 plus 7 is 14 plus 6 is 20. So you've allowed 20 goals in the first 3 games.
That's unacceptable.
It is.
And I know we don't always, we can't think about the end of career stats and what those numbers will look like. But these aren't doing his career stats any favors here.
Totally.
And I'm sure in some point we'll start seeing articles saying, does Marc-Andre Fleury regret signing? Does he this and this? But
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm definitely interested to see how the Wild can pull themselves out of these trenches because they're in deep. If they're still performing like this 5-8 games in, I don't know. I don't know.
Maybe some serious changes need to be made. Speaking of games, especially for the Minnesota Wild, some important games as well. Jess, we are going to take a look ahead at the Western Conference games this week and pick our games of the week this week. Maybe one of our games or maybe both of our games contain one or both of those teams we have talked about. Let's talk about that in just a second. But first, I just want to thank you for making Locked On NHL your first listen today. Now, for your second listen, make sure you tune in to Game, which is NHL, which is here on Locked On NHL. Every moment, every top performance, every result, Locked On Game covers every game from across the NHL with local analysis that only Locked On can deliver. Follow Game to Game on Locked On NHL, available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. Speaking of Game to Game, lots of very fun games to take a look at for the Western Conference teams coming up. But Jess, we're just going to highlight 2 of them. What is your game of the week for the Western Conference this week?
I am calling this a mid-off, and Arizona fans, you can get mad at me in the comments, but it is the Thursday night matchup between Arizona and Montreal. In Montreal, of course, because Arizona is starting, I believe, their first 16 games on the road, so that is something. But I think that both of these teams are very, I don't want to say fun to watch, but I think Montreal is, a little bit more fun. But why not? I think that these are 2 not so great teams that are going to go out there. They all have very young rosters. I like their players. I think that uh, Arizona had a very good game against the Bruins over the weekend. So, you know, I don't want to say don't write them off because they've been written off, but just go and enjoy a low stakes game because I'm sure none of you are rooting for both of these teams.
Come on, what are you talking about?
Oh,
Hey, they had a very good game against the Toronto Maple Leafs we didn't even
they
mention. Yeah.
did.
There's a little controversy in that game as well, but hey, they pulled off the victory. Arizona's looked pretty decent so far this year. A team that has been in every game that they've been in, and if you talk to Robin from Locked On Coyotes, even uh, everybody around Arizona has been very shocked about what they've seen so far, and especially Robin. I remember after the game last night, Robin put in the group chat going, "You're as surprised as I am,"
Yeah, seriously.
but it,
Yeah.
it's exciting. It shows that there's coaching going on down there, and also shows buy-in from the players too. Really saw the emotion from those players, especially in the game against Toronto, and you hear a lot of the right things coming out of Arizona. I think they could be an interesting team to watch. Plus, as well, we're still waiting for the Jacob Chikrin hammer to drop as well. He's going to get moved at some point. What are the additions that are going to be coming in at that point? Because if they're a contender at that point,
Right.
does he stay then? Does then the trade that they make to bring somebody else in, are they bringing a trade to then bring somebody else in who will be on that team now or who can contribute now? Or will they then go, oh, okay, we have a good team now. Let's even build more, even though they have a lot of prospect capital. But now that takes a look or makes that Jacob Chikrin move look a little different, potentially.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like we've been waiting for that for so long, the Chikrin trade. And I know during camp or just a little bit later in the off season, he had mentioned about wanting to stay or that's his intention. But again, I don't think that's up to him. And
Yeah.
I also don't think a player of his caliber would want to spend, you know, a good chunk of his career and potentially some of his prime in, you know, missing out
You
on success.
You
To
can
put it
say it. Yeah, at college again. You can say it.
yeah.
It's I mean, hey, at least you're back at college again at the same time, but
Yeah, but hey, they've already been told that they can't go partying on campus.
they can't?
No, I'm like 90% sure that there was something that they got like someone leaked it
What
that
is this?
they can't like uh integrate not integrate, but they can't mingle with the college students basically. Because I don't think that they're insured in the dorms. I think they're insured at Mullet Arena and that's it.
Let hockey be fun again. Either way, I mean, well, no, actually, that does make sense. Yeah, that does make sense. But, anyways, the Arizona Coyotes, either way, they are playing in quite the situation, and and genuinely, that whole situation is worth the watch the entire season, anyways. So, yes, the Minnesota Wild and the Montreal Canadiens, a surprising call, but I am all the way here for it. My game of the week feels like a little bit of a cheat, and this was like fully unintentional as well, but we're here anyways. My game of the week is on Thursday as the Vancouver Canucks visit the Minnesota Wild. Wow, have we ever heard of
How
those teams before?
ironic. How
Huh.
ironic.
weird. It's almost as if those two teams need a big result. The Minnesota Wild, as we've seen, have not been very good at preventing goals. The Vancouver Canucks, at the same time, have not been good at preventing goals, but they have been good at A, taking the lead, and B, scoring goals. So they're going up against a team who's not very good at preventing goals. They are a team who's also not good at preventing goals, but do score goals.
Yeah.
What are we going to see? Are we going to see another 7-6 game for the Minnesota Wild? Are we going to
Oh man,
watch this game potentially be a game where it's just like, oh,
it's gonna be
here's
like
the
2-1 hockey.
literally 2-1, 1-0, as we're all going, oh, they all finally figured out how to prevent goals. But I mean, 5 goals against for the Vancouver Canucks against the Calgary Flames, 4 against the Philadelphia Flyers, 6 against the in their last game against the Washington Capitals, 7 goals in their first game against Colorado for the Wild, 7 goals in their second game against the Los Angeles Kings, and 6 goals in the third game against the who is the third team they played? The New York Rangers. There we go. So this has the potential, and they both have 2 fantastic goaltenders. Maybe one defensive, actually not maybe one defensive core. One defensive core is better than the other, and one forward core is, you can argue either way. But this is going to be a very, very good show, and I think a game that both teams have circled on their calendar right now. Vancouver called their players only meeting and said, you know what? There's something, so we need to wake up here. And Minnesota is facing a team that I guess in theory should not have a difficult time against, but they probably are going to. Can Vancouver finally get out of their slump in Minnesota, or can Minnesota finally get out of their slump against the Vancouver Canucks?
Yeah, I'll be interested to see if either team pick up a win between now and then. I was reading an article on Sportsnet today that calls the team mentally weak because obviously a player referred to them as that. I can't find the attribution, but does this it was the coach.
Oh, Bruce.
Brucey. Oh boy, Bruce. It's a whole nother can of worms. But at the same time, like, can't like are either of these teams that can, you know, pick themselves up by the bootstraps and say, hey, let's get this together. And I think if it's going to be either one of the two teams, it's going to be the Wild. Tonight, the Canucks play Columbus, who are also looking for a win.
Yeah, that's
I don't know.
Yeah, there's a lot of very big games going on. I mean, Jess, we've raised a whole bunch of questions here, but make sure you also head for the answers to
Yeah.
Locked On Canucks and Locked On the Wild as well. Justin and Seth both have fantastic shows as well. So if you're not already listening to their shows as well, what are you doing? But yeah, we've raised the questions, they've got the answers, and those answers will come on Thursday. Well, Friday, Thursday, depending on when you listen to the show.
Yeah.
But yeah, either way, what a week we have still. It's any day, any week that has regular season hockey is a fantastic week. So we shall see you next Tuesday. Jess, where can they find you?
So you can find Locked On Flames wherever you're listening to Locked On NHL or your corresponding Locked On podcasts, and of course on YouTube as well at Locked On Flames. And you can find the show on Twitter at LO_FlamesPod. And if you'd like to follow me, you can follow me on Twitter at Jess Belmosto. And Brett, where can we find you?
You can find me on any social media personally at the real Holden 40. Even my SoundCloud is that as well. But you don't care about me, you care about the Oilers. And you can find the Oilers on Locked On Oilers at you can find Locked On Oilers on Twitter at Locked On Oilers. There we go. A lot of words, a
There we
lot of
go.
Oilers, a lot of Locked On. Either way, it's spelled exactly how it sounds, Locked On Oilers. You can also find us on YouTube at Locked On Oilers. Again, exactly how it sounds. If you haven't subscribed, what are you doing? You get to see a cool little jersey facade. What are you doing?
And I take back everything nice I said about Zach Hyman in our crossover episode.
Hey, that is not on him, okay? I understand where you're coming from on that, and I have opinions on it, but that's fine. We'll leave it for another time.
Well, thank you, everyone, and stick around. The guys from Battle of Ontario we're flip-flopping, so they'll be here on Wednesdays now. We're here on Tuesdays, and we will catch you next Tuesday.